Hi, it's Grandmama Doris. We're up to Chapter 9 in the Lemonade War by Jacqueline Davies. Chapter 9 Negotiation. Evan looked up from the marble track that he was building when Jessie walked in the front door. She looked hot. She looked sweaty, but she looked happy, really happy, like she had just gotten an A+, or like she had just won a war. "What are you smiling for?" asked Evan, holding a marble at the top of the track. "No reason." Jessie put her hands on her hips and stared at Evan. She looked like one of those goofy yellow smiley faces, all mouth. "Well, quit looking at me, would you? It's creepifying. You look like you're going to explode or something." Evan dropped a marble into the funnel. It raced through the track, picking up speed around the curves. It passed a flywheel, sending some flags spinning, then fell in a final drop. When it reached the end of the track, it went sailing through the air like a beautiful silver bird and fell short. The marble landed on the ground instead of in the bullseye cup. Evan muttered under his breath and adjusted his cap. "Race the end of the track," said Jessie. "You'll get more loft." Evan looked at her angrily. The marble had fallen into the cup the last 10 times that he had done it. Why did it fall short now, the one time when she was watching? "Don't tell me what to do," he said. Why was she smiling like that? "I didn't tell you what to do," she said. "I just made a suggestion. Take it or leave it." She turned and she went upstairs. "Gruntmeister Fink," she tossed it over her shoulder. Evan threw a marble at her, disappearing back, but missed by a mile. Well, he hadn't really been aiming anyway. He just wanted that feeling of throwing something. He had been feeling the need to throw something the past 4 days. Gruntmeister Fink was the name of a character he had made up when he was 6 and Jessie was 5. That was back when their mom and dad were fighting a lot, and Evan and Jessie just had to get out of the house. They'd scramble up and climb a tree. Evan sat on his branch and Jessie would sit on hers and wait it out. Sometimes they had to wait a long time. And once, when Jessie was thirsty and impatient and cranky, Evan had said, "You be quiet and I'll tell you the story about Gruntmeister Funk." Gruntmeister Funk was a man who was cranky and mean and made everybody miserable. But deep down, he wanted people to love him. It's just that every time he tried to do something nice, it turned out all wrong. Evan had made up a lot of stories about Mr. Fink in that tree. But after Dad left, there just weren't any more stories to tell. No one in the whole world besides Jessie and Evan knew about Gruntmeister Fink, and Evan had thought about it for years. "Hey," he said sharply. He heard Jessie atop and said down the stairs, but she didn't come. "Do you want to call this whole thing off?" he asked. "What?" she shouted. This lemonade war," he said. "Call it off?" "Yeah," he said. "Just say nobody wins and nobody loses." Jessie walked down the stairs and she stood with her arms crossed. Evan looked at her. He missed her. He missed the whole day, the third to the last day before school started, all by himself. It stunk, he thought. It totally stunk. If Jessie had been around and they hadn't been fighting with each other, they could have played air hockey or made pretzels or built a marble track with twice as many gizmos and launched the marbles into the bullseye cup every time. Jessie was very precise. She was good at gathering the marbles and going and getting them into the cup. "What do you say?" he asked. Jessie looked puzzled. "I don't know," she frowned. "You see, Megan Evan felt his face get hot. Megan Mortarity. Every time he thought of his throat would just get squeezed, scratchy. It was like an allergic reaction he had when he accidentally ate shrimp. You told Megan mortality about everything? He asked, feeling itchy all over. Well, no, not everything. Everything? Asked Jessie. Evan thought she looked like a fish that had been caught up in a net. You did. And suddenly, Evan knew exactly why Jessie had been smiling when she walked into the door, and why she didn't want to call off the war. She had done it again. She had figured out some way to show the world just how stupid he was. Like the time he'd come home with 10% of his weekly spelling quiz, 100% on his weekly spelling quiz, the only time he had ever gotten every word right, to find out that Jessie had won a statewide poetry contest. He had thrown his paper into the trash without telling his mom. What was the point? Evan didn't know how, but somehow Jessie had found a way to earn more than $103. She was going to beat him, and Megan Mortality knew all about it, and she would tell everyone else. All the girls would know. Paul would know, and Ryan, and Adam, and Jack. Scott Spitzer would know. Can you believe it, he thought? He lost to his little sister, the one who's going to be in our class. What a loser, he would think. You know what, he said, pushing past her. Just forget it. Just forget I said anything. The war is on. O-N. And prepare to die. Chapter 10. Malicious Mischief. Jessie was all in knots. Evan was madder than ever at her, and she couldn't figure out why. He had said, do you want to call off the war? And she had said, sure, let's call off the war, or something like that. That's what she'd meant to say. That's what she wanted to say. But what she really said, she had mentioned Megan. Oh, she had almost spilled all the beans about Megan give her $104. But she hadn't. She kept her mouth shut. Just this one time. Jessie smiled, remembering that. So why had Evan acted like that? Was he the matter? What was the matter with him? Jessie lay on her bed. The world was a confusing place, and she needed Evan to help her figure it out. If this was what the 4th grade was going to be like, she might as well just give up now. And there was something else that was tying her up in knots. That $208. It was really hers. Megan had given it to her to make a donation. She had given it to Jessie, and that way, Evan's friend had given him the money too. That still made her so mad when she thought about it. Oh, she wanted to get even with him for saying that she didn't have any friends. So even though it looked like she had $208 in her lockbox, only half of that money was honestly her own. Still, if push come to shove and she needed it to win, sure, she would use it. This is war. But if she pretended that all the money was hers, hey, what if Evan has more money than that? So, if she lost, even with Megan's money, gulp. Jessie hadn't thought of that. If she lost, even with $208, if she lost, oh my gosh, it's winner take all. She would lose all of Megan's money to Evan. How could Jessie explain that to her friend? You see, I took the money that you earned to help the rescue animals, and I lost it to my brother. Who's going to buy an iPod? Megan would hate her. All of the girls who were friends with Megan would hate her, and Evan already hated her. So that was that. Goodbye, 4th grade. She couldn't use Megan's money to try to win the bet. It was too risky. But did she have enough to win on her own? Jessie felt desperation rising in her throat. How much money did Evan have? She had to find out. Jessie tiptoed upstairs to the attic office. She listened at the door. Her mother was on the phone. Then Jessie snuck downstairs. Evan was watching TV in the family room. Like a whisper, she crept back upstairs and into Evan's room. There was a strict rule in the Tresky house. No one is allowed in anyone else's room without express invitation. That was the term, express invitation. It meant that Jessie had to say, "Evan, can I come into your room?" And Evan had to say yes before she even put a toe over that line. So even though Evan's door was wide open, she just crossing the threshold was a direct violation and carried a fine of $1. But that was the least of Jessie's concern. She snuck over to Evan's bookshelf and picked up a carved cedar box. Evan chose a souvenir from his family summer vacation. The orange-red wood box of wood had a cent etched into the top, and a sailboat that passed a lighthouse while gulls flew overhead. The words Bar Harbor, Maine were painted in the sky. The box had a brass hinge and a clever hatch. What did it have was a lock. Jessie flipped open the lid, immediately smelling the spicy, sharp scent of wood. She couldn't believe her eyes. Her hands started pawing through the bills, dozens of them. There was a 10 and a bunch of 5s, and there was 1s, more than she could count. She sat on Evan's bed, quickly sorted out the money. Evan had $103.11, 89 cents less than she had. 89 cents. He could sell one lousy cup of lemonade tomorrow and beat her. And there was nothing she could do about it, because she'd be at the beach. I can't let him win, she thought. I just can't. She had gotten to the point where she couldn't even remember what had started the whole war. She couldn't remember why it had been so important to win in the first place. Now she just had to win. She messed up all the money and stuck it back into the wooden box. That night, in bed, she lay awake trying to think of some way to stop Ellen from selling one single glass. Sometimes in the dark thoughts come. Jessie had a very dark thought. The next morning was Sunday, and the rule of the Chusky house was that everyone could sleep in as late as he or she wanted to. But Jessie awoke to the sound of the electric garage door opening. She sat up in the bed and checked the clock. It was 8 o'clock a.m. Then she looked out her window just in time to see Evan pedaling away on his bike, his backpack on. She quickly hurried and dressed and got to the kitchen. Her mom was making scrambled eggs and toast. "Hi, Jess. You want some?" she asked, pointing to her with a spatula and a pan of sizzling eggs. "No, thanks," said Jessie. "I washed your blue bathing suit last night. It's hanging in the basement. What time are the Mortarities picking you up?" 9 o'clock, said Jessie. "Mom, where did Evan go?" "He went to the store to buy some lemonade mix." Jessie's mom scooped the eggs onto the plate and put the pan in the sink. When she turned to the faucet, the pan hissed like an angry snake. A great cloud of steam went into the air and then disappeared. "What's going on, Jess? What's with all the lemonade stands and you and Evan fighting?" Jessie opened the pantry cupboard and pulled out a box of Kicks. "Nothing," she said. She watched the cereal very carefully as she poured. She didn't want to look her mother in the eye right then. Miss Tresky got the milk out of the refrigerator and put it on the counter next to Jessie's bowl. "It doesn't seem like nothing. It seems like there's a lot of bad feelings between you two." Jessie poured the milk slowly. "Evan's mad at me, and he's going to be a whole lot madder after today," she added in her head. "What's he mad about?" asked Miss Tresky. "Well, I don't know. He called me a baby, and then told me that I ruined everything." Jessie felt it coming. She tried to hold it back, but she knew it was coming. Her shoulders tightened and her chest caved in, and her mouth opened in a howl. "He said he hates me." Tears poured out of her eyes and dripped into her cereal bowl. Her nose started to run and her lips quivered. With every sob, she let out a sound like tires squealing on a wet road. For the whole time Jessie cried, Her mother wrapped her in her arms and hugged her. And then, like a faucet turned off, Jessie stopped. She had told the truth, and she really didn't understand why Evan was so angry. Even before the lemonade war, he had been mad, and Jessie still didn't know why. Better? Asked Miss Tresky. Not much, said Jessie. She wiped her nose with her napkin, and she started eating her cereal. It's so soggy, but thankful, not salty. Don't you think it would be a good idea to find out what he's mad about? Asked Jessie's mom. You're never going to stop being mad at each other until you both understand the other person's feeling. I guess so, said Jessie. But it's so hard. Sometimes it's even hard to know when you're feeling yourself. I mean, how do you know? Asked Miss Tresky. Jessie didn't have to think long. All the insults, all the anger, and all the confusion and fighting seemed to give her the courage and a single flash of a white-hot feeling. I hate him. I hate him for saying those mean things and for not letting me play. I hate him just as much as he hates me. More. Miss Tresky looked sad. Can we have a sit-down about this tonight after you get back from the beach? No, said Jessie. I'm remembering the spirit now. Evan would be mad if he knew that he had worried his mom with that fighting, and then he'd spill the beans about all the terrible things she was doing. Jessie didn't want her mom knowing anything about it. We'll work it out ourselves, Mom, I promise. Evan and I will talk about it tonight. I'm sorry it's been working so hard, she said. Tresky, I know it's a lousy feeling at the end of the summer. It's okay, Mom. You gotta work. It's all right. No, I don't know. I promise. I'll be finished by dinner time. That way we can all go sit down and see the fireworks together. Jessie's mom looked out the window. I hope they don't get canceled because of weather. They're saying scattered thunderstorms this evening. Jessie and her mom finished breakfast without saying very much. I'll clean up, said Jessie. She liked to do the dishes, and she wanted to do something nice for her mom. While she cleaned, she thought about the terrible plan she had come up with the night before. It was mean. It was really mean. It was the meanest thing that you could ever imagine doing. I'm not going to do it at all, she said. I hate him, but I don't hate him that much. She was putting the last glass in the dishwasher when Evan walked in. His backpack was bulging. I thought you were going to the beach for the whole day, he said. Megan's picking me up in a half an hour. She thought she saw Evan stiffen up. Good. What's in the backpack? Not much, he said, dumping out the contents on the table. Cans of lemonade mix rolled all over. Jessie tried to count them, but there were too many. 15, 20. Holy macaroni, how many cans did you buy? 32, said Evan. The stack sounds like a pyramid. But you don't need that much. Even to win, you don't need that much. That's, and then she decided to do the calculations in her head. That's 256 cups of lemonade. If you sell them at 50 cents a piece, $1. I'm going to charge $1. Jessie felt like her head was going to explode. You'll never sell it all, she said. There isn't a neighborhood in town that will buy 256 cups of lemonade in one day. Too much lemonade. Not enough thirsty people, she thought. I'm going to roll like ice cream truck. I'm going to mix it all up in a big cooler and wagon it from the street. The high today is going to be 94 degrees. It might take me all day, but I'll sell every last drop. 256 smackers. And then tonight, Juicy, when we count our earnings, don't forget, winner takes all. But you don't need $256 to win, she said. Evan stood tall and said in a gravely voice to all the boys imitated, I don't play to win, I play to pulverize. Oh, what an idiot. Jessie couldn't believe her brother could be such a jerk. She watched as Evan put together his rolling lemonade stand in the garage. The cooler was something that Miss Tresky had bought a few years back when she was in charge of refreshments at the school. It looked like a giant Dumbo drum with a screw-off top and a slingshot bottom, Evan loaded it into the wagon and pushed the mix in front of the thirsty cans. He used a garden hose to fill the cooler all the way to the top, then dumped in 4 trays of ice cubes. With a plastic beach shovel, he stirred the lemonade. The ice cubes made a whirling, rattling noise as they swirled around in the big drum. Using the shovel like a big spoon, he scooped out a tiny bit and he tasted it. Perfect, he announced, screwing the top back on tightly. Then he went to the basement and he made his lemonade stand on wheels sign. Without a moment's hesitation, Jessie sprang into action. First, she got out a large Ziploc bag from the kitchen drawer, the kind that you could freeze a whole gallon of strawberries in if you wanted to. Then she held it upside down and wide open over the fruit bowl. She gave the fruit bowl a big solid knock. Jessie was surprised how easy it was to catch the fruit flies that floated up from the bowl. It was like they wanted to die. She filled that bag and 2 more with flies. Then hurried into the garage. She unscrewed the top of the big cooler, holding the first bag upside down. She unzipped it, expecting the flies to fall all down into the lemonade. They didn't. They stayed safe and dry in the bag. It was like they wanted to live. Too bad for you, stupid flies, said Jessie as she plunged the bag into the lemonade. Under the surface, she turned the bag inside out, switching it back and forth so all the flies were washed off into the lemonade. She emptied all 3 bags of flies into the cooler. Then she hunted around until she found 2 green inchworms and a fuzzy gypsy moth caterpillar. She tossed them into the cooler. Then she threw in a fistful of dirt. And for good measure, she was just about to screw on the top, when she heard Evan coming up the basement stairs. There wasn't time to get the top back on. He would see the bugs and the whole plan would be ruined. Jessie ran to the steps and shouted, "Evan, Mom wants to see you in her office right away." "Oh, man," muttered Evan, and he started to climb the second set of stairs. Jessie quietly screwed on the cap, grabbed her blue bathing suit from the basement, and then went upstairs to her room. On the way, she passed Evan coming down. "Mom did not want to see me," he said, annoyed. Jessie looked surprised. "That's what it sounded like." She yelled something down the stairs. "I thought it was, 'Get Evan.'" Jessie shrugged. "So I got you." From her bedroom window, she watched Evan rolling down the street with his lemonade on wheels stand. He was like one of those old-time peddlers calling out, "Lemonade! Get your ice-cold lemonade here," as he walked. For one little brief second, Jessie felt a stab of regret. She could see how hard he was trying and straining to pull that heavy cooler. She knew that it was like to stand in the hot sun selling lemonade. But the feeling was snuffed out by the hurricane of anger that she felt when she remembered Evan's gravely voice. Pulverized. Jessie switched into her bathing suit, packed up her beach bag, and laid a quick goodbye to her mother in the Merriways pulled up in the driveway. "What a great day for the beach," said her mother. "Have fun and be home in time for fireworks, okay?" The fireworks. Yep, Jessie imagined. There would be some fireworks tonight.